This episode of Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom has been made possible by generous contributions from Code and Supply Co-working Space, Small Universe, and Captured Identity. You're listening to the song Killer by Sam Stuckey. Today we're filming at Code and Supply Co-working Space, Co-working Space. They've graciously provided us a little bit of...
That's a Jason move right there. Yeah, it is.
It really is. I'm just going to start. They call me Ketamine Kodat. Actually, that's not even a joke. Been there, gone that, gifted the scrub top.
I've tried and I've tried, oh, I've killed and I've lied. Anything to get your attention. I wrote 20 lines about the look in your eyes, oh, but hearing them didn't cause you to see. Saying you the words from a 10-story building.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom. Today we are filming in Code and Supply Co-working Space. The folks here have graciously given us a little bit of space here to make us comfortable, give us good natural lighting from these great windows, and also a little bit of their time to keep the doors actually open since we don't have a key. And today we're going to be talking to one of our featured artists from the May Gallery, Dave Prelosky. Welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you on the show. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Unlike a lot of the folks that show up, I am well into my photo career. Recently retired from the news business, and I have been taking pictures for nearly 35 years for Pittsburgh newspapers in the North Hills and in Butler, Pennsylvania. So I've been at it every day, pretty much 5 or 6 or 7 days a week for 35 years. I've got a couple adult children and a wife and a dog who lets us live with them. And hundreds of pictures and lots of fun stuff and lots of memories.
And you mentioned lots of fun stuff because I think one of my first memories of you was showing up at one of our events with like 2 gigantic, you could hide a body in trunks. And you're like, I brought some stuff to play with. And you did. In fact, actually a piece of it, you can't see it off camera, but there's this 6-foot gigantic softbox here, and that was one of the things. And you're like, just pulling these things out. We're like, wow.
Well, I can't use it all the time, so we might as well pass it around.
I suppose that's some of those things you kind of pick up over the course of a career like that.
I've got more stuff in my garage than I know what to do with it. If anybody needs to borrow anything, get a hold of me.
So how did you get into photography?
Well, there are 2 possible stories we can follow. One, when I was a very small child, probably 5 or 6, I remember being in a car with my parents out at Keystone Park out in New Alexandria, Pennsylvania, coming home, and I remember my father telling us a story about how he took pictures and developed them under my grandmother's steps. And he promised that someday he would show me how to work in a darkroom. Well, I lost my father when I was very young, so I had to put that off for a while, which leads into phase 2. In high school, where a lot of people seem to start, for a period of time, the high school that I went to had a sort of enlightened art curriculum. Way back when high school art was painting and drawing and maybe pottery, and maybe you could make some jewelry. Well, they decided to expand it to printmaking and photography and some of the other crafty sort of arts. And being a child of the late 60s and 70s, I had no real clue what I was going to do with my life and said, well, this photo thing sounds interesting. I'm going to take that. And so I did. So I started taking pictures in high school in 1969 and have more or less been at it since.
Okay. And did you go straight into the business, or was there a gap?
No, I've gone a couple different directions. Okay. Right out of high school, I worked for the long departed National Record Mart chain.
Yes.
I've always been a fan of music and have never been able to play. I can't play and I sing flat, so that pretty much ruined my music career. So the next best thing was to work for music dealers. So I did that for a while, and well, sort of pretending to go to school. And wound up working in live music for a while, doing the strong back, weak mind, lift and carry, plug the cables in, make the lights work, because I can't sing and I can't play. Left the music business and started selling photo equipment. And from there, I had a photographer come in from a local newspaper who was coming in to do a staff photo for an ad that the owner of the store had bought. When this guy came through the door, we said to him, "Hey, you don't seem to have much stuff with you. Do you want some more lights? You want a background? Do you want a wider lens? We got it all here in a case. What do you want to go with?" And I got to know the guy until I finally called him one day. "You're going to love this." McKnight Road in the North Hills out near Ross Park Mall, there was a wreck in front of the store involving a Datsun sports car and a minivan full of elderly nuns.
Oh, God.
Now, the wreck wasn't particularly bad. Nobody was really injured, but I called him at the office and said, "We've got this wreck down here. You're going to come down and cover it." And all I heard come out of the phone was, "Idiot. You're in a camera store." "Yes." "You have cameras there." "Yes." "Put film in the camera, go to the wreck and take pictures of it." "Then what?" "Bring the film here so we can make pictures and put them in the newspaper." That was about 1983. And it's been photos in papers pretty much ever since. When I first started, I got paid $5 a picture.
Oh, wow.
No mileage, no lunch, no benefits. $5 a picture for whatever ran. And here we are 35 years later, and I've retired from a job that I never thought was going to turn into a career.
Funny how that happens sometimes by accident.
Yes, it does. All you young guys out there, be careful how long you spend at one job. Switching jobs is not a bad thing.
Definitely shakes things up, gives you a new perspective.
Yes, it does.
Do you obviously that's the first news photo you really remember taking. Do you remember a first photo even farther back than that?
Listening to people talk, I've been trying to think. I remember when I was a kid taking pictures in the backyard of people playing with a little brownie camera, and you look through.
Mm-hmm.
I remember the first photo I ever sold a print of. In 1970, I went to a James Taylor concert at the Civic Arena when his act was him and a guitar and a chair. And took my parents' camera to this concert, an Argus C3. It looks sort of like a brick with a lens on it.
Mm-hmm.
Took some pictures, got one nice frame, looked at it and said, "I'm going to get that printed." Somebody where I worked said, "I'd like a picture of that." And I was deathly embarrassed to ask them for $5. But I sold a batch of prints of that because everybody liked James Taylor.
Ah. Another thing that you didn't necessarily intend to do and
No.
then kind of fell into.
No. So here we are 40 whatever years later, still taking pictures.
And do you have one that stands out as your favorite?
Working in the news business, it's hard to say this is a favorite.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a batch of favorites, sort of depending on what the category is. I've been to plenty of fires and wrecks and floods and things that you make memorable images. I've been to sporting events where you watch people win and lose. One of my all-time favorite sporting photos was a kid that played at Butler High School named Nate Hartung. Nate was a mountain of a man, is a mountain of a man. His nickname in high school was the Big Rig. The kid played high school basketball at 6'5", 405 pounds.
Oh my.
Yeah. Nobody ever remembers seeing or hearing a bigger high school athlete. But I got a shot of him at a game with 4 opposing players literally bouncing off of him. And the kid was so big that until referees had seen him a time or two, they thought he was fouling everybody. They thought he was knocking people around, and they were all trying to control him, and they just couldn't do it. But I've got this shot of him going for a shot with 4 players just bouncing. It's just hilarious.
That sounds pretty amazing.
That's one of the most memorable. I've got some news shots of events that you just say, my day can't get any worse. The only way it could get any worse would be to be that guy down there on the ground.
Yeah.
And you remember them, and you kind of have to compartmentalize because they're not a lot of fun to remember.
Yeah, because that sort of bearing witness to tragedy, it's not the same as being in the tragedy, but it's also multiplied how many times every year.
Exactly. So I've got favorites, and things that I remember. I've got pictures of one of our dogs that I just love because he was just a great dog. Mm-hmm. I've got some pictures of my kids that are a lot of fun because they're my kids and because I like the pictures.
Is there anything in particular, one niche area that you really like to take photos of?
Well, because I've always sort of been around musicians, I really enjoy photographing live music, live entertainment in general, simply because it's the closest I can get to participating. I photograph musicians and they tolerate me being around. It's sort of I don't want to say parasitic relationship, symbiotic. It's a symbiotic relationship. I take pictures and they let me hang around and they let me move around on stage sometimes.
Very shortly, we will be talking about your latest photo, which is the one in the gallery. Although we do have to take a quick break for a couple of short messages. We'll be right back. The theme for the Shadyside Open Air Gallery in July will be Americana. Make sure to get your photos submitted by June 15th to be considered. You can submit them directly to the Open Air Gallery's Facebook page or use our hashtag on Instagram, #captured.pgh. This episode of Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom was filmed at Kodat Supply. It's a co-working space in East Liberty that is more than just a place to work with other people. It's also a job board and a place to find great events, including meet and greets, lectures, and workshops. Welcome back. We're still chatting with Dave Polaski about his print that's in the gallery this month. And is this your first opportunity to be in a gallery?
Yes, it is.
Oh, really?
I've submitted a couple and haven't made the cut.
Oh,
but like anything, you keep trying.
And eventually you'll get in somewhere.
It's not the first print or photo I've had in an exhibit anywhere, but this one's kind of fun because it's big, it's bright, it's outdoors. Everybody is going to see it. Lots of people are going to see it, I should say. Okay, so this was a little bit different experience from previous. It's a lot different than being in a newspaper where people pay to have things show up on their doorstep. And the reproduction is much better. Thanks, Jason.
So tell us a little bit about how this particular print came to be.
Well, as my kids have gotten a little older and moved out of the house, my wife and I have had the opportunity to do a little bit of traveling, and we decided that one of the places we wanted to see was the Pacific Northwest. Okay. So the photo that's up is from a place in Oregon called Hasita Head Lighthouse. I don't remember how to spell it. I'm sure it's on a map.
Right.
And on this trip, I made sure that I had enough room in the luggage for gear and a decent tripod because I wanted to specifically to be able to take time and make nice pictures while we were out because it's probably going to be a bit until we get back there again. So we started in Portland and went down through Crater Lake and some of the redwoods in the very northern part of California and then up the Oregon coast. And Oregon is just littered with lighthouses. They're just everywhere. On this side of the country, there's sort of an oddball thing, except in North Carolina. But out there, it seems like every 20 miles, there's another lighthouse. So we stopped, and I kind of looked around the terrain and said, you know, if we just hang on a little bit, the light in this is going to get really nice. And fortunately, my prediction was right. The light did get kind of nice that day. So we've got a nice picture of this big lighthouse on a nice sort of cliff with trees and ocean and some sky.
Okay. So that wasn't something you were deliberately seeking out.
No. We're looking for what was there and hoping to record the best of what we could find, if that makes sense.
Oh, that makes perfect sense.
Okay.
And you did hit upon a really nice spot there.
Yep. So we highly recommend Heceta Head Lighthouse to anybody looking for a nice photo. And went up the Oregon coast and wound up in Seattle and came home. So that was sort of our planning mode for that trip. We've been a few other places, but this one I specifically said to her, if we're going, we're making an effort to make good pictures. Because you can do the navigating. You can tell me if you think a place looks nice, because my wife paints. So she's got an opinion about what looks nice and what light works as well. So 2 heads are frequently better than 1.
Typically.
So that's how we came to Heceta Head.
Okay. So kind of a little bit planned spontaneity.
Planned in that we were going to make photos, not necessarily that we were going to wait there until the light was perfect.
Right. So if we wanted to see more of your pictures, where can we find them?
Well, as I've just retired, I have not built ever a website. My photos pretty much exist on Facebook. I know that I have an Instagram, and I think the only photo I have there is me in a pair of socks. Because it was the only thing I could figure out how to get uploaded. Sitting on a recliner in the living room. But if you find my name and add photographer to it, I'm all over Facebook, because I like to do a little bit of writing about what the content of the photos are about sometimes. Sometimes you need text to appreciate a little context.
Yes. Yes, and Facebook is a little bit better for that as opposed to the Instagram.
So I started there. I've got that fairly well down. I'm sure I'll be putting up a website sometime soon, as soon as I narrow down literally hundreds of frames into something I want people to see, and find somebody to build it and host it.
Very good. Well, we'll be looking forward to that, because some of these places you've been sound amazing.
It's a big country. Let's go see it.
That's very true. Well, thanks for coming on to the show.
All right. Thanks for putting up with me.
Our pleasure. And thank you all for watching. Thanks once again to CNS Code Supply co-working space. Don't forget to continue to watch our videos. We'll always have more. You can subscribe by clicking the little link if you're watching this on YouTube. If you're listening to this on iTunes, please go ahead and give us a rating. We'd love a 5. If you didn't think we were that good, feel free to rate us lower, but even any rating helps. And we should be seeing you on the next episode of Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom. Thanks for watching. This has been a production of Captured Cities. Captured Pittsburgh Darkroom is produced by Jason Fait, Adam Thomas, and Jason Kodat. Production assistance for this episode was provided by John Hall and Dave Prelosky. Copyright 2018.
Look in your eyes, oh, but hearing them didn't cause you